Hello students, in this module we will continue chapter 6, and that is the last thing we did in the previous module was regarding the Simon Commission. Here we will be doing further what happened after Simon Commission, and the things that we are going to cover in this module are the Nehru report, which was directly an answer to the Simon Commission. Afterwards the things took turn and this non-cooperation movement came to an end, and there started a new movement, that was civil disobedience movement. It started in 1930 and it went on till 1934. For the next 4 years it went on very successfully, and the points that were included in this were Dandi March, and there were other programs of the movement that were included in it. Along with that, we can see even the round table conference also formed an important part of this. So now moving further and to come to the detailed explanation, we see about the Nehru report, which was given in 1928. So as per this topic, we see when Simon Commission was given to India, people refused it and did not want to follow it, just for the same reason that it was a commission which had none of the Indian members included to it. As a result to this, an explanation was given by a British Lord Birkenhead, and he said Indians were not included in this commission for a simple reason that Indians could not come to a proper decision as they lacked unity. Therefore, it was decided that Indians, all the parties, they came together and they came with a particular notion that they want to prove this particular remark wrong, and all the different parties, they came together to have a joint session. Therefore, all the liberals, assertive nationalists, leaders of the Hindu Mahasabha, and even the Muslim League, and even the representatives of the depressed classes, they all came together, and in this particular meeting they got Motilal Nehru as their chairperson. Now the chairperson of the committee was Motilal Nehru, but Sir Tej Bahadur Sapru and N.C. Kelkar were the principal associates. The report submitted the all parties conference is known as Nehru report. So all the parties coming together and giving this report, it is Nehru report, called as Nehru because it is brought under the chairmanship or under the leadership of Motilal Nehru. Therefore, we will not don't get confused. It is not about Jawaharlal Nehru. It is about Motilal Nehru, and so it is called the Nehru report. Next we see the Nehru report proposed dominion status. Now these are various items or various things that were given out by the Nehru report. First of all, it proposed a dominion status for India. The Parliament of India should consist of, first, a Senate that should elect for 7 years and should have 200 members, and they should be elected from the provincial councils. Next is the House of Representatives should be there with 500 members elected for 5 years, and that should be done through universal adult franchise. That means Indians should be given the part to, or should be given a proper part to play their important role as the voters. Next was joint electorates with reservations of seats for the minorities should be given out. Creation of new provinces on the basis of the linguistics should be done, and 19 fundamental rights including the right to vote, freedom, arbitrary arrest and searches and seizures, and freedom of conscience should be given to the Indians or Indian crowd. So these were the various declarations which were given out in the Nehru report. After this we see declaration of the Poon Swaraj. Just after this particular passing of the resolution or the report, which was called as Nehru report, another important thing came out in the Calcutta session of the Congress. It served as an ultimatum to the British government, and that is to accept the Nehru report by the end of 1929 or to face a mass movement. And therefore we can say, since the 1 year time limit was set in Calcutta session, it passed without any positive response. Therefore, the British government did not answer to this particular report, and Nehru report was declared as to have lapsed in the Lahore session of Congress in 1929. And we all know, we have done it in civics also, in the Lahore session of Congress in 1929, then they decided that British is not paying any heed to their particular report and is not working as per the requirements. Therefore, now onwards, their main goal is not the dominion status, that is ruling India under the British. Rather, now onwards, they want a complete independence and complete control over their country, and this was termed as the Poon Swaraj on 26th of January. And that is why we have studied earlier, 26th January 1929 onwards, or 1930 you can say, it was decided that now onwards 26th January is going to be celebrated as Independence Day, to make everyone realize that Poon Swaraj or complete independence is the main goal of the Indian nationalists or the Indians who are fighting for freedom. It should be complete independence. Here we see, after this complete independence, on the midnight, when this was decided, on the midnight of December 31, 1929, Jawaharlal Nehru led a procession to the banks of river Ravi at Lahore, which is now in Pakistan. Over there, Nehru led a procession and hoisted the first time tricolor flag. It was not on an independent Indian land, but although we can say it was hoisted just to show that we are rebelling or we are revolting against the British government, and now we do not want them in our country as the rulers. We want our own ruler, our own rule, and that is why the tricolor was hoisted over there by Nehru. This is Jawaharlal Nehru, not Motilal Nehru. He proclaimed that it was a crime against man and God to submit any longer to British rule. We are no longer going to submit to their authorities, and now we want a complete independence. So the Congress Working Committee met again in January 1930, and then they decided this program along with the complete independence. These things were followed. There should be a preparation for civil disobedience movement. As per the Poon Swaraj resolution, the Swaraj in the Congress constitution would henceforth mean complete independence. It's not going to, Swaraj does not mean self-rule, it means complete independence, no interference of the British rule. They would observe 26 January as the Poon Swaraj Day or the complete Independence Day. Resignations by members of the legislature were given. Withdrawal from all possible associations with the British government was done, so that no ways they are going to be having association with the British, and they are going to be totally and completely against them. So it was decided to observe this day, 26 January, as Independence Day every year till the time they do not get the real independence. They did not know when it was going to get it will be given to them, but still they decided that till the time they do not really achieve this goal, this particular date will be kept aside and celebrated as the Independence Day. So here we see, as per the Nehru report and then this particular you can say the declaration of Poon Swaraj, we come to the next topic, and that is they decided in the Congress committee to start a civil disobedience movement. And finally in 1930, in January it was decided, and in February in 1930 the Congress Working Committee met again at Sabarmati Ashram, and under Gandhi all the powers were decided, and Gandhi decided to launch the civil disobedience movement. Before starting the movement, Gandhi served on the British government a 11-point particular you can say ultimatum. That means there were 11 points he had in his request, which were given to the British by Gandhi. He wanted the British to pay attention to that, to follow that, and if they don't do it, then as a retaliation or then as a revolt or then as an opposition, Gandhi will start the civil disobedience movement. After waiting in vain for the government's response for the ultimatum, Gandhi decided that they are not going to respond, and therefore he decided that we are going to conduct the civil disobedience movement. And this was done by with this famous Dandi March, which was done from Sabarmati Ashram of Dandi to Dandi to the coast of Gujarat. So this was basically a civil disobedience. Government had given a strict law that none of the Indians can make salt out of water, seawater, and nobody is going to use that particular making of salt water for commercial purpose. That was another thing. But here nobody was allowed to use salt made by them by themselves or by their own efforts. The reason behind, salt was heavily taxed, and the common people who did not have enough money, salt was a basic necessity, and if they do not use it, it was very difficult to have any particular thing, food with any taste. So it was a basic necessity, and it had the huge amount of taxation on it, and therefore Gandhi decided that we are not going to abide to this rule, and we are going to show civil disobedience by breaking the salt rules or salt laws. And we are going to have a march from Sabarmati to Dandi, and there at the sea coast we are going to make salt out of seawater, and this will be done in the mass level, so that it becomes a mass retaliation or a mass movement to show British that we are not going to abide to their rules any further. So on 12th of March, Gandhi began his historic march from Sabarmati Ashram to Dandi, and this was known as the Dandi March. On the morning of 6th of April, he finally reached to Dandi. While he started his journey, he had very few people, but later onwards, along them, many people joined, and it was a huge crowd which reached to the Dandi coast. And Gandhi violated the salt laws at Dandi by picking up some salt from the sea. It was symbolic that they are going to make their own salt now, and they are not going to abide to the law. He had selected to attack the salt laws because salt tax affected all sections of society, and by attacking this particular or striking on this particular note, he could have the entire congregation, entire general public come along with him and take him as the help him to make it as a successful mass movement. So all people from different sections of society, they came together, rich and poor, everyone were there in this movement. And Gandhi's breaking of salt laws marked the beginning of the civil disobedience movement. Through this, it was not only making of salt, they would catch on to various other different things also, but this was the beginning of the civil disobedience movement. Now, while they were doing the civil disobedience movement, what were the most important programs that were supposed to be taken under this movement? Here we have already seen programs of the movement. So after Dandi March, there were various programs which were supposed to follow it, and which were done in a way. So what were they? First of all, defiance of salt law. Then there will be boycott of liquor, because mostly the liquor was from outside, from Britain. So it was boycott of liquor. Then boycott of foreign cloth, British goods, and all kinds of British things related to British Empire. So all those things will be boycott, so that they realize that now Indians are not going to be with them in congregation, or in, you can say, abiding to their rules and regulations in any particular sphere. And then lastly, it was non-payment of taxes and revenues. No matter what you do, we Indians are not going to pay your taxes and revenues. So this was the idea and a way to tell the British the message that now we are not going to obey you, we are not going to let you work properly over here, we are going to show proper civil disobedience, and that too on the mass level. So it becomes the entire empire difficult to rule in different parts of the country and have proper control over the people. What was the progress of the movement? We see the movement rapidly spread out, and everybody came to know what Gandhi has done on Dandi March and at the coast over there, how the violation of salt law has been done, and it is a big answer to British negligence towards Indian retaliation, Indian rebel, or India's requests and ultimatums that were given to them. It was soon followed by defiance of forest laws in Maharashtra, Karnataka, Central Province, and refusal to pay rural chowkidari tax in the eastern India also. So numerous forest tax, chowkidari tax, people refused to pay all these things in various parts of the country. It was not only in one state or one region, it was in different parts of the country. All these things started spreading violently, and you can say not violently, but I mean what I should say, it spread it out very quickly as a wildfire. It spread, the news spread, and people started following these particular ways of showing their disobedience or not going to abide to the laws, that particular feature. Everywhere in the country, people joined hartals, demonstrations, and campaigns to boycott British or foreign goods. Besides that, it was the boycott of British goods and the picketing of liquor also that was done over here in the mass level. And this was just to show that now your products are not going to have any market in India. We are not going to abide to all those things. The movement reached the extreme northwestern corner of India and stirred the brave Pathans also. Now it was the northwest is basically your Punjab Afghanistan region with now Punjab Pakistan. So over there all the Pathans also they started joining this particular movement, and under the leadership of a very influential Pathan, and that was Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan. He was in that northwestern frontier. He was a very you can say dynamic personality who was a very good leader, and that is why he is also called as the Frontier Gandhi. It might be asked in your questions, who is Frontier Gandhi? Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan was known as the Frontier Gandhi. He organized a society of all the Pathans to work against British and for the Indians, and this society was known as Khudai Khidmatgars, or the servants of God. And this was also popularly known as the red shirts. They used to wear red t-shirts or red shirts, and that is why they were called as the group of red shirts. They were pledged to non-violence and freedom struggle. They are going to follow the freedom struggle, but just with the same way as Gandhi has taught, and that was with proper non-violence. The movement also became popular in the easternmost part of the country, where the Manipuris joined the movement with great enthusiasm. In Nagaland, Rani Gedulu at the age of 13 responded to Gandhi's call, and so even from western to eastern, from northern to southern, all the regions of the Indian subcontinent were under this particular movement, and it became really difficult for the British to fight against this particular retaliation or to control it easily. So that was something which was a big challenge for British now to have a proper control over the Indians. Then we see what did British finally do to repress this particular retaliation or rebellion. It was the government resorted to firing, lathi charge, and large scale of imprisonment. They got everyone arrested and they were stirred into firing and beating them, so that by pressure they could stop them from getting into this particular kind of retaliation. Over 90,000 satyagrahis, including Congress leaders and Gandhi, were all imprisoned. They thought that it's better to imprison the leaders, and people without a leader will not be able to go further with the programs. The Congress was declared an illegal organization. Remember, it was the same Congress which was started with proper cooperation of the British, and now they were the one who started declaring it as an illegal body, because they felt that it is not letting British to rule properly or work properly, and it is instigating people to fight against the British. Later we see protest meetings were held everywhere. The textile and railway workers of Mumbai went on a strike, and there were instances of firing at Delhi and Kolkata also. This was all, you can say, a mass movement of retaliation, and it became really difficult for the British to control it. Even after firing, lathi charging, imprisonment, all the things, they were not able to have proper control over the empire, and that became a big nuisance for them to have or maintain their rule in India. Lastly, we move on to the last part, and that is the round table conferences. Under the round table conferences, we see the Indian round table conferences were held in 3 different sessions, and that is why they are commonly known as the first round table, the second round table, and the third round table. Here we see, when we are talking about the round table conferences, the first round table conference was held somewhere around November 12, 1930. From there till January 9, 1931. The first roundtable conference was held in London, and the Congress, which was unhappy with the reports of the Simon Commission, boycotted the conference, and they did not go and did not join this particular thing but other political parties, they were interested, and groups as well, they were properly represented. The British raised the futility of holding a conference on the question of constitutional reforms for India without the representation of the Congress, because even they felt that Congress is the biggest organization by that time, and without their particular representation they cannot have any organization or that recognitions or representations done, and therefore no negotiations could be done, and this roundtable conference was totally boycotted by the Congress, and as a result it was something which did not come to any particular result or anything, and it was decided that one or some of the members of the Congress need to attend the roundtable conference, and therefore it was decided that for the second roundtable conference, somewhere or the other, if not all the leaders, at least one representative, probably Gandhi, could be made to attend that particular roundtable conference. What happened after that, how Gandhi agreed to it, that we'll do in Gandhi Irwin Fact and further part of the chapter. For today, we will end the module at this particular note only, and with this we come to the end of today's module. Thank you.